The morning sun cast long shadows across Seoul International Academy as students hurried through the gleaming corridors. Hidden among them walked beings from distant stars. Their true forms concealed by advanced holographic projectors, the Galactic Education Exchange had been Earth's best-kept secret for 3 months now, and only a handful of government officials knew that 17 alien students were attending regular human schools. Minji adjusted her backpack and walked into advanced physics, room 304. To everyone else, she looked like any other 17-year-old Korean girl with her neat uniform and quiet demeanor, but beneath her human appearance, her brain processed information at speeds that would make quantum computers jealous. Her enhanced neural pathways could visualize 11 dimensions simultaneously, and she understood the fundamental forces of the universe like humans understood basic arithmetic. Mr. Park stood at the front of the classroom, his weathered face already showing signs of irritation as students filed in. He had taught physics for 23 years, and in his mind, he knew exactly which students belonged in advanced classes and which ones were simply taking up space. When his eyes fell on Minji, his jaw tightened with familiar disapproval. "Today, we're covering relativistic mass calculations," Mr. Park announced, turning to write complex equations on the smartboard. "I expect most of you will struggle with this concept, so pay attention." The equations flowed across the board in neat rows, each symbol representing years of human scientific discovery. Round the room, students frantically scribbled notes, their faces scrunched in concentration. Jinho, a brilliant student who dreamed of becoming an astrophysicist, found himself lost within the first few steps. Suna, who usually excelled in mathematics, stared blankly at the incomprehensible formulas. But Minji saw something entirely different, where humans saw complex mathematics. She observed the elegant dance of space and time itself. The equations weren't just numbers and symbols to her, they were a language describing the very fabric of reality. She noticed immediately that Mr. Park had made 3 critical errors in his derivation, mistakes that would lead to completely wrong conclusions. Her hand rose slowly into the air. "What is it now?" "Miss Kim." Mr. Park's voice carried an edge of annoyance that made several students shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Sir, I think there might be an error in the 3rd equation. The gamma factor should be—" "Miss Kim," Mr. Park interrupted, his voice growing louder. "Perhaps you should focus on understanding the basics before trying to correct your teacher. These equations were developed by some of humanity's greatest minds." A flush of embarrassment colored Minji's cheeks, but her enhanced mind couldn't simply ignore the mathematical inconsistencies blazing like neon signs before her eyes. She remained silent as Mr. Park continued with his flawed explanation, each wrong calculation making her internally wince. During the practice problems, Minji completed the entire worksheet in 4 minutes, her solutions elegant and precise. When Mr. Park walked by her desk and saw the finished work, his expression darkened. "Miss Kim, step outside with me." The classroom fell silent as Minji followed her teacher into the hallway. Through the glass door, Jinho watched with growing concern, while Suna and Daeyeon exchanged worried glances. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing," Mr. Park said in a low voice, "but I won't tolerate cheating in my classroom. These problems would challenge university students. Yet somehow you solved them all perfectly." "I didn't cheat, sir. I just—" "Don't lie to me. Perhaps you should consider transferring to a more appropriate class level. Home economics might be better suited to your background." The words hit Minji like physical blows. A hybrid physiology meant she experienced human emotions with amplified intensity. And the shame burned through her like acid. She had come to Earth to learn about human culture and education, but instead she was discovering the darker aspects of human nature that the Galactic Council had warned her about. Back in the classroom, whispers rippled through the students. Daeyeon, who sat behind Menji, had noticed her work for weeks. While others struggled with basic concepts, she seemed to understand physics at an almost intuitive level. Her explanations during study groups were clearer than the textbook, and she had a gift for making complex ideas seem simple. "This isn't right," Jinho muttered to Suna. "She's the smartest person in our class, and he treats her like she doesn't belong here." When Minji returned to her seat, her eyes glistened with tears. The other students pretended not to notice, but the uncomfortable tension in the room was impossible to ignore. Mr. Park continued his lesson with renewed authority, making more mathematical errors that Minji now kept to herself as the bell rang, and students gathered their belongings. Minji remained seated, staring at her perfect solutions while her teacher's words echoed in her mind. She had traveled across the galaxy to study humanity, but she was learning lessons she had never expected. The universe was vast and filled with wonders beyond imagination. Yet sometimes the greatest obstacles weren't black holes or cosmic storms, they were the prejudices that lived in the hearts of ordinary people. 3 weeks had passed since that humiliating conversation in the hallway, but Minji's brilliance couldn't be hidden forever. During chemistry lab, while other students struggled to balance simple equations, she sketched molecular diagrams that looked like intricate artwork. Her drawing showed caffeine molecules dancing with dopamine receptors, and she explained chemical bonds as if she could actually see the electrons sharing their orbital spaces. "How do you know that?" whispered Yunji, a chemistry enthusiast who sat at Minji's lab table. "The textbook doesn't show molecules like this." Minji paused, realizing she had drawn the molecules exactly as her enhanced vision perceived them, complete with quantum probability clouds and electromagnetic field interactions that human instruments couldn't detect. "I just imagine them that way," she said quietly, quickly erasing the more advanced details from her diagram. But her abilities extended far beyond chemistry. In physics class, Mr. Park assigned problems about satellite orbits round Earth, while students used calculators and struggled with basic trigonometry. Minji's mind automatically calculated the gravitational influences of the moon, sun, and even Jupiter's distant pull. She could see the invisible threads of gravity weaving through space like a cosmic web. Her homework solutions were so elegant that they resembled poetry more than mathematics. Where other students wrote pages of calculations, Minji reduced complex problems to a few beautiful lines that revealed the underlying harmony of the universe. But instead of praise, her work earned suspicious glares from Mr. Park. "These shortcuts you're using," he said during one class, holding up her assignment. "Where did you learn them? This isn't how we solve these problems. I just thought about it differently." Minji replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The breaking point came during the annual science fair project presentations. Students had spent months preparing their displays, and the gymnasium buzzed with excitement as parents and teachers examined everything from volcano models to solar-powered cars. But in the far corner, almost hidden behind a recycling awareness poster, stood Minji's project. The title read simply, "Theoretical Framework for a Faster-than-Light Communication Using Quantum Entanglement Networks." Her display included hand-drawn diagrams that showed how entangled particles could maintain instantaneous connections across galactic distances. She had calculated the energy requirements, designed theoretical relay stations, and even addressed the paradoxes that had puzzled human physicists for decades. Jinho found himself drawn to her booth like a magnet. As he read through her research, his eyes widened with each page. This wasn't just advanced science, it was revolutionary. Her mathematical proofs were flawless. Her theoretical framework was brilliant, and her proposed solutions to faster-than-light communication could change everything humanity understood about the universe. "Minji, this is incredible," he breathed, Flipping through her detailed calculations, you solved problems that scientists at Seoul National University are still working on. How did you even think of using quantum foam fluctuations to stabilize the entanglement? Before Minji could answer, Mr. Park's voice boomed across the gymnasium. What's all this commotion about? He strode over to Minji's display, his face already set in disapproval. As he read through her project, his expression grew darker with each page. The research was too advanced, too perfect, too impossible for a high school student to have created. "This is clearly copied," he announced loudly, his voice carrying. Across the entire science fair, conversation stopped as heads turned toward the confrontation. No student could understand these concepts, let alone develop original theories about them. Parents and teachers gathered round as Mr. Park continued his public humiliation. "Miss Kim, plagiarism is a serious offense. I'm disappointed that you would try to pass off professional research as your own work." Minji's cheeks burned with shame as dozens of eyes stared at her. "Sir, I didn't copy anything. I can explain every calculation, every theory." "Enough," Mr. Park snapped, with deliberate cruelty. He began tearing up her carefully prepared research. Papers, each rip echoed through the gymnasium like a physical blow. Months of work, pages of revolutionary discoveries that could have advanced human science by decades, were reduced to scattered fragments on the floor. "Let this be a lesson to everyone about academic integrity," he declared, grinding the torn papers under his heel. But Jin-Ho had been watching Minji for months now, and something didn't add up. During study groups, he had noticed her genuine confusion. When classmates struggled with concepts that seemed elementary to her, when someone asked about basic physics principles, she would tilt her head with the same expression a college graduate might have when asked to explain why water is wet. He remembered the day Suna had struggled with simple velocity calculations. Minji had tried to help, but her explanations were too advanced, too intuitive. She spoke about acceleration as if she could feel the forces, described momentum as if she could see it flowing through objects. Her confusion wasn't about the material being too difficult, it was about why everyone else found it so hard. After the science fair disaster, Jin-Ho followed Minji outside. She sat alone on a bench, staring at the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky. For just a moment, her expression changed, and Jin-Ho saw something that made his breath catch. She was looking at those distant points of light not with wonder or curiosity, but with the familiar recognition of someone gazing at old friends. "You didn't copy that research, did you?" he said quietly, sitting beside her. Minji turned to him with eyes that seemed to hold depths far beyond her apparent age. "No, I didn't copy it. But maybe Mr. Park is right. Maybe I don't belong in that classroom after all." High above them, invisible to human eyes, a small reconnaissance ship maintained its orbit around Earth. Its occupants monitored the conversation below, their advanced sensors detecting the emotional distress radiating from their young ambassador. The first phase of humanity's greatest test was not going as planned, and the consequences would ripple across the galaxy in ways that no one could yet imagine. The evening air was crisp as parents streamed into Seoul International Academy for the quarterly parent-teacher conferences, the parking lot filled with familiar sedans and SUVs. But tonight something was different. A sleek black vehicle with tinted windows and government plates pulled up to the main entrance. The security detail that emerged first made several parents pause and whisper among themselves. Admiral Lee Kyungman stepped out of the vehicle, his Earth Defense Force uniform pristine and decorated with ribbons that told stories of humanity's first ventures into space. The silver stars on his collar caught the fluorescent lights of the school entrance, and his presence commanded immediate respect. But it was his companion that made everyone stop and stare. The figure that emerged from the passenger side was tall, nearly 7 feet, with an elegant frame that seemed to flow rather than walk. His skin had a subtle blue-silver tint that shimmered under the lights, and his eyes held an intelligence that seemed to pierce through reality itself, despite his clearly non-human appearance. He wore a perfectly tailored suit that somehow made. His otherworldly features seemed dignified rather than threatening. Principal Young-Ho rushed to greet them at the entrance, his face a mixture of excitement and barely controlled panic. "Admiral Lee, we weren't expecting you tonight. Is everything all right?" "Everything is fine, Principal. I'm here for a parent-teacher conference regarding my daughter, Minji Kim." The words sent a shock through the small crowd of parents who had overheard Admiral Lee Kyungmin, one of the most decorated officers in Earth's newly formed space fleet, was claiming to be the father of the quiet girl from the advanced physics class. They made their way through the corridors, past classrooms, where other conferences were taking place. The alien ambassador moved with fluid grace, his footsteps making no sound on the polished floors. Students who glimpsed him through doorways rubbed their eyes. Unsure if they were seeing things correctly, room 304 was nearly empty when they arrived. Mr. Park sat at his desk, grading papers and checking his watch impatiently. He looked up as the door opened, and his face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, and then stark terror as he realized who was standing before him, Mr. Park. Admiral Lee said in a voice that could command starship, "Cruise across the galaxy. I believe you requested this conference to discuss my daughter's academic performance." Mr. Park's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I don't understand. Minji Kim is. She's just a regular student. I never requested any meeting. Allow me to introduce myself properly." The tall figure spoke, his voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in the air itself. "I am Ambassador Theron of the Andorian Science Council, representative of the Galactic Education Exchange Program. I am here regarding the treatment of our first successful human-alien hybrid student, the blood drained from Mr. Park's faces. The implications hit him like a meteor strike. Hybrid. Minji is. She's not human. She is both human and Andorian," Admiral Lee explained, his voice remaining calm despite the storm brewing in his eyes. "Her mother was Dr. Sarah Chen, humanities, first xenobiologist to make contact with the Andorian delegation. When she died in a research accident, I adopted Minji and raised her as my own daughter." Ambassador Theron stepped forward, his presence filling the small classroom. The Galactic Education Exchange was designed to test humanity's readiness for full membership in the Interstellar Alliance. 17 young beings from various species have been placed in human schools across your planet, observing how your kind treats those who are different. Mr. Park's hands trembled as he reached for his desk to steady himself. But her test scores, the impossibly advanced work, impossibly advanced. The ambassador's voice carried a note of cold amusement. Her project on faster-than-light communication was actually quite elementary by Andorian standards. She was attempting to work at what she believed was a human level of understanding. Through the classroom window, they could see the parking lot where more vehicles were arriving. But these weren't cars, they were sleek, silent craft that seemed to bend light round their edges. The backup that Admiral Lee had called for was making itself known. The torn research papers. Admiral Lee continued, his voice growing harder. Represented 3 years of work that could have advanced human space travel by decades. You destroyed it in front of her peers because you couldn't believe that someone who looked like her could be capable of such brilliance. Mr. Park slumped into his chair, the weight of his actions finally becoming clear. "I didn't know. I thought she was cheating. I never imagined." "That's precisely the problem," Ambassador Theron said, his eyes now glowing with a faint blue light that indicated serious displeasure among his species. "You never imagined." You looked at a being of extraordinary intelligence and saw only your own prejudices reflected back. The classroom door opened, and Minji herself entered, no longer hiding behind her holographic disguise. Her true appearance was breathtaking human features blended seamlessly with Andorian characteristics, creating something entirely new and beautiful. Her eyes held the depth of space itself, and her presence radiated an intelligence that made the air around her shimmer with possibility. "Hello, Mr. Park," she said quietly, her voice now carrying the same harmonic undertones as Ambassador Theron's. "I wanted to thank you for teaching me the most important lesson of all." "What lesson?" Mr. Park whispered, his voice barely audible. "That intelligence and wisdom are not the same thing," she replied. "Your knowledge of physics is impressive, but your understanding of people still has room to grow." Outside, the strange craft were attracting attention from passers-by. Emergency vehicles were arriving, but they weren't responding to a crisis. They were part of the escort for humanity's first official interstellar diploma. Tick incident. The quiet hallways of Seoul International Academy had become ground zero for a moment that would determine Earth's future among the stars. Admiral Lee placed a protective hand on Minji's shoulder. "The question now, Mr. Park, is what we do about this situation. Your treatment of my daughter has been observed and recorded by the Galactic Council. They're waiting for our report on whether humanity is ready to join the greater community of intelligent species." The weight of the entire galaxy seemed to press down on the small classroom as Mr. Park realized that his prejudices hadn't just hurt one student, they had potentially jeopardized humanity's entire future among the stars. Within hours of the confrontation in room 304, emergency meetings were happening in government buildings across the globe. The Seoul incident, as it came to be known, had triggered protocols that most world leaders didn't even know existed. In a secure bunker beneath the Blue House, President Kim Sang-woo stared at a holographic display showing 17 different locations round Earth where similar situations were unfolding. "You mean to tell me," the president said slowly, "that we have alien students in our schools right now? And we've been failing this test for months." General Park Min-hyun, head of Earth's newly formed Extraterrestrial Relations Division, nodded grimly. "The Galactic Council has been observing us through what they call the Integration Protocol. 17 young beings from different species were placed in human educational institutions. The idea was to see how we treat those who are different from us." The holographic display showed footage from schools in Tokyo, London, New York, and Sao Paulo. In each location, similar stories were playing out: exceptional students being dismissed, ignored, or worse because teachers and administrators couldn't see past their own biases. Back at Seoul International Academy, chaos had erupted in the hallways. News crews surrounded the building like a pack of hungry wolves, their cameras capturing every detail of the alien spacecraft that now hovered openly above the school. The craft itself was a marvel of engineering, a crystalline structure that seemed to be grown rather than built, its surface rippling with patterns of light that pulsed in harmony with some cosmic rhythm. Principal Young-ho paced in his office, fielding calls from the Ministry of Education, the media, and parents who demanded explanations. Through his window, he could see Ambassador Theron speaking with other alien representatives who had materialized seemingly from thin air. Their conference looked like something from a science fiction movie, complete with floating holographic charts showing Earth's performance ratings. "Sir," his secretary knocked frantically, "the Minister of Education is on line 1. The President's office is on line 2, and there's something on line 3 that says it's calling from the Andorian homeworld." In the gymnasium, an emergency assembly had been called. Students filled the bleachers while teachers whispered nervously among themselves. Jinho, Suna, and Dayan sat together, still trying to process what they had witnessed. Their quiet classmate, Minji, was not only an alien hybrid, but potentially the most intelligent being in their school. "I can't believe we've been sitting next to an actual alien this whole time," Suno whispered, her eyes wide with amazement. "She's not just an alien," Jinho corrected. "Remembering the torn research papers, she's like a super genius alien. Did you see those equations she was working on? I looked them up online later. That stuff is graduate-level theoretical physics." The gymnasium doors opened, and Minji entered with her adoptive father and Ambassador Theron. But now she wasn't alone. Behind them walked beings that looked like they had stepped out of humanity's wildest dreams. There was a creature that seemed to be made of living crystal, another that resembled a cross between a dolphin and a butterfly, and a tall figure whose skin shifted colors like an aurora. "Students of Seoul International Academy, Ambassador." Theron's voice carried perfectly through the large space without any amplification. "We are representatives of the Galactic Education Council. For the past 4 months, we have been conducting what your species might call a social experiment." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as students and teachers tried to comprehend the magnitude of what they were hearing. "Across your planet," the crystal being spoke, its voice like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. 17 of our young people have been attending your schools. They came not as invaders or conquerors, but as students hoping to learn about human culture while we evaluated your species' readiness for galactic citizenship." The butterfly dolphin creature floated slightly above the ground, its wing fins creating mesmerizing patterns. "Unfortunately, the results have been disappointing. In 14 of the 17 test sites, our students have faced discrimination, dismissal, and in some cases, outright hostility." Principal Yun-ho stepped forward, his face pale but determined. "What can we do to fix this? How can we prove that we're better than this?" "That," said the color-shifting being, "is exactly the question we hoped you would ask." Meanwhile, in the depths of space, massive ships from a dozen different civilizations hung in orbit around Earth. Each vessel represented a different member species of the Galactic Alliance. And all eyes were focused on the small blue planet. Below, the bridge of the flagship, a biomechanical marvel from the Cetacean Collective, hummed with activity as representatives debated humanity's future. The sole incident shows promise. Clicked Admiral Kethra, her dolphin-like features animated as she spoke. One teacher's prejudice was confronted by the broader community. The humans are capable of growth, but the pattern holds across multiple test sites. Counted Commander Zix of the Silicon Brotherhood, his crystalline form refracting the bridge lights into rainbow patterns. Systematic bias against difference appears to be a fundamental human trait. Back on Earth, the consequences were spreading like ripples in a pond. Universities round the world were reviewing their admission policies, wondering how many brilliant minds they had rejected due to unconscious bias. Governments were scrambling to create new protocols for interspecies relations. And in classrooms everywhere, teachers were having uncomfortable conversations about their own prejudices. Park sat alone in his empty classroom, staring at the equations still written on his whiteboard, the same equations Minji had tried to correct weeks ago. He had pulled up original research online, the papers that had been preserved in the school's digital archive before he destroyed the physical copies. As he read through her work, the magnitude of his mistake became clear. This wasn't just advanced science, it was revolutionary thinking that could change everything. His phone buzzed with a message from the school board. "Report to emergency. Hearing tomorrow at 0800. Bring legal representation." Outside his window, the alien spacecraft continued their silent vigil, waiting to see whether humanity would learn from this moment or repeat the same mistakes that had held them back from joining the stars. The transformation began immediately after the Seoul incident. Within days, Minji's research was declassified and shared with the global scientific community. Her theories on quantum entanglement networks didn't just advance human understanding, they shattered the barriers that had kept Earth isolated from the galactic community for millennia. Dr. Yuki Tanaka at Tokyo Institute of Technology was the first to successfully replicate Minji's faster-than-light communication device. The moment the quantum transmitter connected with its counterpart on the Andorian homeworld, humanity heard its first message from the stars: "Welcome to the galaxy, young cousins." The ripple effects spread across every field of human knowledge. Medical researchers used Minji's dimensional mathematics to develop treatments that worked at the quantum level, curing diseases that had plagued humanity for centuries. Engineers built spacecraft that could fold space around themselves, turning month-long journeys into hours. Artists created holographic sculptures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, inspiring new forms of beauty that had never been imagined. But the most profound changes happened in classrooms around the world. The Seoul Protocol, as it came to be known, mandated that every educational institution undergo a complete review of their practices. Teachers attended workshops on recognizing and nurturing exceptional abilities in all students, regardless of their background or appearance. The phrase "different doesn't mean deficient" became a cornerstone of educational philosophy. Jinho, now a graduate student in astrophysics, often visited the memorial that had been built in Seoul Academy's courtyard. It wasn't a monument to tragedy, but a celebration of potential recognized. The inscription read, "To every mind that dares to dream beyond the stars." He remembered that day in physics class when he first realized that brilliance could wear any face, speak any language, come from any world. In the years following the revelation, 17 new scholarship programs were established, one for each of the alien students who had endured discrimination during the integration protocol. These programs specifically sought out students who had been overlooked or dismissed by traditional educational systems. The results were extraordinary. Children from remote villages made breakthrough discoveries in renewable energy. Students with learning disabilities developed new forms of mathematics that solved problems faster than supercomputers. The most remarkable transformation, however, happened to humanity's relationship with the cosmos itself. The Galactic Alliance had been watching Earth for centuries, waiting for the right moment to make contact. They had seen civilizations rise and fall, watched species destroy themselves through hatred and fear. But humanity's response to the Seoul incident gave them hope. "Your species has shown something rare in the galaxy," Ambassador Theron explained during the first official diplomatic meeting between Earth and the Alliance. "You have the capacity to recognize your mistakes and change course. Most civilizations become trapped by their own prejudices, but humans seem capable of evolution." 3 years after that fateful parent-teacher conference, the construction of humanity's first interstellar vessel was complete. The ship was a marvel of hybrid technology, human engineering enhanced by Andorian quantum mechanics, cetacean biointegration, and Silicon Brotherhood computational systems. It represented everything humanity had learned about cooperation and acceptance. Captain Kim Minji stood on the bridge of the Use Harmony, watching Earth shrink behind them as they headed toward the Vega system. Her crew was a perfect reflection of humanity's new place in the universe, humans working alongside beings from a dozen different worlds, each contributing their unique strengths to the mission. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Park Jimin, her human navigation officer, "we're approaching the quantum fold threshold, ready to engage the dimensional drive on your command." Beside him, Science Officer 09, a crystalline being from the Silicon Brotherhood, monitored the exotic energy readings with sensors that could perceive 17 different dimensions simultaneously. "Sly, all parameters are within acceptable ranges, Captain. The mathematics you developed are holding perfectly." Minji smiled. remembering the torn papers that had once littered the floor of room 304. Those same equations now powered humanity's journey to the stars. Engage the drive. Let's see what's waiting for us out there. The ship folded space round itself, and in an instant, they crossed 27 light-years through the view screen. They could see the Vega system spread out, before them 5 planets orbiting a brilliant blue-white star, one of which was home to the Luminal Collective, a species that communicated through patterns of light. Receiving communication from the surface, reported Communications Officer Juan Mina. They're welcoming us in. It looks like a combination of mathematics and music. As the crew worked together to decode the alien greeting, Menji thought about the chain of events that had brought them to this moment. A teacher's prejudice had nearly derailed humanity's entire future, but it had also become the catalyst for unprecedented growth and understanding. Back on Earth, in a small classroom in Seoul, Mr. Park was teaching a new generation of students. His methods had changed completely after the incident that had nearly cost humanity its place among the stars. On his desk sat a framed copy of Menji's first research paper, the one he had once torn up in. Ignorance. Today, we're going to learn about the fundamental forces of the universe, he told his diverse class of human and alien students. But first, I want each of you to share your own unique perspective on what we might discover. Remember, there's no such thing as a wrong viewpoint when we're exploring the unknown. A young Andorian student raised her hand, her eyes bright with curiosity. Mr. Park, what if we could make gravity work backwards? Mr. Park smiled. No longer seeing difference as a threat, but as an opportunity. That's an excellent question. Sir, let's explore that possibility together. High above Earth, space stations from 100 different worlds orbited in peaceful cooperation. Humans worked alongside beings they had once thought impossible, tackling challenges that no single species could solve alone. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but humanity had earned its place among the stars not through conquest or domination, but through the simple act of learning to see the brilliance in others. The little girl who had once sat silently in the back of a physics classroom, enduring prejudice and discrimination, now led expeditions to distant worlds. Her journey from victim to victor had become humanity's story, as well proof that the greatest discoveries often come from the most unexpected places. As the U's Harmony continued its mission of exploration and discovery, Earth itself had become something new, a world where difference was celebrated, where potential was recognized regardless of its source, and where the next great breakthrough might come from anyone willing to dream beyond the stars. Indy,